Garage Hollow's end auto was a relic of rusted metal and grease-stained concrete, nestled at the edge of a town that seemed to exist only in the rearview mirrors of passing truckers. Jake Mercer had worked there for 5 years, but he'd never shaken the feeling that the land itself resented the building. The repair bay sat atop what locals called the Sour Patch, a stretch of earth where nothing grew, not even weeds. Old-timers at the diner muttered about unmarked graves and a cholera outbreak in the 1800s, but Jake dismissed it as small-town superstition. Until tonight. His boss, Carl Harlow, was a man built like a cinder block with a voice that could strip paint.
You're staying late, Mercer.
Carl barked, slamming a work order onto the hood of a pickup truck. The vehicle was a Frankenstein's monster of mismatched parts, its engine wheezing like a terminal patient.
Oil change, brake pads, and a timing belt. Don't care if it takes till dawn.
Jake's knuckles whitened around his wrench.
I told you, my sister's picking me up at 9. She's got night classes.
Carl smirked, lighting a cigarette. The smoke coiled around his face like a shroud.
Should have thought of that before you botched the Henderson transmission.
A lie, and they both knew it. Henderson's truck had been a lost cause before it rolled in, but Jake needed the job. Needed it bad. As Carl's taillights vanished into the dust, the garage seemed to exhale. Shadows pooled beneath the lifts, and the fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets. Jake worked in a fugue state, the radio crackling static between songs. At 11:03 p.m., the pickup's engine roared to life, its headlights flickering across the garage doors. For a heartbeat, the beams illuminated a figure outside, tall, gaunt, wearing a coat that billowed like smoke. Jake blinked and it was gone. He finished at midnight. The Sour Patch outside hummed with crickets, their song too rhythmic, too deliberate. Jake's skin prickled. He showered here, he decided. The apartment could wait. The employee shower was a closet of cracked tile and mold, tucked behind the parts room. Jake stripped down, his clothes stiff with grease. The mirror above the sink was mottled with age, its edges blackened as if scorched. Forgot my damn soap again. He rummaged through the supply cabinet, knocking over cans of WD-40 and brake fluid. Behind a stack of shop towels, he found it, a soap bar wrapped in yellow parchment. The paper crumbled at his touch, revealing a wedge of soap the color of bone marrow, veined with gray. It smelled wrong. Not the chemical stink of industrial cleaner, but something earthy and cloying, like wet soil and clove cigarettes. The water hissed to life, scalding at first, then icy. Jake lathered the soap, its suds thick and iridescent, clinging to his skin like oil. As he scrubbed, the drain gurgled, coughing up black sludge. He told himself it was old grease. Told himself the flickering light was just a bad bulb. But then the soap began to move. Tendrils of foam snaked up his arms, cold as grave dirt. He tried to rinse it off, but the water turned sluggish, syrupy. Pink swirls spiraled down the drain, then crimson. The smell hit him, raw meat left in the sun. Jake staggered, slipping against the tiles. His reflection in the fog mirror wavered. For a split second, another face stared back. Sunken eyes, teeth like splintered ivory, lips peeled in a grin. He fled, shirt inside out, shoes unlaced. In his haste, he didn't notice the welt rising on his collarbone, a perfect ring of bruises, as if fingers had pressed there. Back in the garage, the radio spat a fragment of a song.
"To dust to dust, ashes to ashes."
Jake laughed, a brittle sound. Just exhaustion, just his mind playing tricks. But under the workbench, the soap's wrapper lay where he dropped it. The parchment, now legible in the moonlight, bore a single word in faded ink.
Veles.
Jake's hands shook as he buttoned his shirt. The memory of the gaunt face in the mirror seared into his mind. The garage felt colder now, the air thick with the metallic tang of old oil and something darker. He grabbed a mop to clean the shower floor, the bleach smell clashing with the lingering scent of cloves from the soap. The fluorescent light above him flickered, casting jagged shadows that danced like skeletal fingers. As he swiped the mop over the tiles, the room's temperature plummeted. His breath fogged the air, and the mirror, still streaked with condensation, began to shift. Letters formed in the steam, one by one, as if an invisible finger traced them. T-A-N-K-Y-O-U. Jake froze. The words gleamed wetly, dripping down the glass. Behind him, the shower faucet creaked open, a trickle of water hitting the floor. It wasn't water. Thick and dark, it oozed like syrup, spreading toward his boots. A guttural voice, more vibration than sound, rumbled through the room. "You scrubbed my tomb from your skin? But I'm still here." He bolted, slamming the shower door behind him. Outside, the garage was silent except for the groan of wind against the bay doors. The radio, still tuned to static, suddenly crackled to life. A man's voice, garbled and distant, chanted in a language Jake didn't recognize, Slavic, maybe or older. Beneath the words, a wet, rhythmic sound pulsed, like a heart beating inside a coffin. Jake tore the radio's plug from the wall. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. As he sped out of the garage in his battered pickup, he didn't notice the rearview mirror. Reflected in its glass, a figure sat in the back seat, a man in a tattered frock coat, his skin translucent, fingers curled around the headrest. Sleep offered no refuge. Jake's dreams were a fevered reel, a moonlit field, a shallow grave, and hands clawing through damp soil. A man emerged, pallid and snarling, his clothes caked in mud from a century underground. The vampire, Veles, dragged himself to a crumbling chapel where he carved soap from his own withered flesh and the fat of stolen travelers. The scene shifted. A caravan of settlers, their throats slit, rendered into tallow. A priest chanting as he buried the soap in a lead box, his voice trembling.
"Bind him here, beneath stone and steel."
Jake woke at 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, the welt on his collarbone throbbing. It had spread, tendrils of blackened veins now spidering toward his heart. He scratched at it, and his fingernails came away flecked with rock. At work the next day, customers recoiled. Mrs. Fletcher, who brought her minivan in for new tires, crossed herself when he handed her the keys.
"Ain't right,"
she muttered.
"You got the devil's mark on you, boy?"
Desperate, Jake drove to the county archives after his shift. The librarian, a wisp of woman named Agatha, paled when he mentioned Veles. Without a word, she led him to a microfilm machine and loaded a brittle reel labeled Local Folklore. 1880s. The screen flickered to life, revealing a newspaper clipping. Blood cult uncovered near Hollow's End. The article detailed a farmer's family found drained of blood in 1883. Their bodies arranged around a pit filled with animal bones and soap carved into occult symbols. A sketch showed a gaunt man in a tricorn hat. Lord Veles, a nobleman exiled from Romania for unspeakable rights.
"He's buried out by the old quarry,
Agatha whispered.
where your garage sits."
Jake's phone buzzed. A text from Carl. "Get back here now." Carl's office reeked of cigar smoke and ammonia. Jake found him hunched over a safe, its contents spilling onto the desk. Gold coins stamped with Cyrillic lettering, a faded daguerreotype of Hollow's End auto in the 1920s, and a lead box engraved with the same serpentine runes as the soap.
You knew.
Jake hissed, slamming the microfilm printout on the desk.
You knew what was buried here.
Carl turned, his face a mask of cold amusement.
My grandfather built this garage. Found the soap in 29 when digging the first foundation pit. Thought it was a damn gold mine.
He lit a cigar, the ember glowing like a demon's eye.
Every few years, some idiot uses it. Veles gets a taste of freedom, and I get a cut of his gifts.
He tossed Jake a coin. It burned his palm, leaving a blistered sigil. Jake's vision swam. The coins weren't gold. They were human teeth fused with lead.
You're feeding him workers, like me.
Had to keep him satisfied,
Carl shrugged.
till you woke him up proper.
The garage lights died. Frost crackled across the windows. Veles materialized behind Carl, his form flickering between corpse and shadow. The vampire's voice echoed from the walls.
Your bloodline promised me sustenance, but this one
A skeletal finger pointed at Jake.
is mine.
Carl's smirk vanished.
Wait, we had a deal.
Veles struck faster than a cobra. His hand plunged in Carl's chest, withdrawing a pulsing blackened heart. Carl collapsed, mouth frozen in a silent plea, as Veles crunched the organ between jagged teeth. Blood dripped onto the soap's wrapper, its parchment hissing and reforming into a contract. Jake's name bleeding into the parchment.
Sign,
Veles crooned.
and I'll spare you.
Jake fled to the garage bay, the contract clutched in his fist. The vampire's whispers slithered after him.
Your sister, how she trusts you, how soft her throat would feel.
The soap sat in the shower stall, now swollen to twice its size, throbbing like a tumor. Jake grabbed a sledgehammer from the tool rack. The handle seared his palms. Veles' laughter in his skull.
I'm not your damn puppet.
Jake roared. He swung. The first blow cracked the soap. A wail erupted, not from the soap, but from the garage itself. The walls bled rust-colored ooze. The second strike split the soap open, releasing a geyser of black sludge. Veles' form unraveled, his screams merging with the guttural howls of countless victims trapped in the soap's curse.
You fool,
Veles spat, his body dissolving.
the mark binds you. You'll rot as I did.
Jake collapsed as the garage trembled. The surviving soap shards writhed, forming a final message on the floor. You return. Carl's body was found mummified, his skin parchment dry, and his eyes hollowed into voids. The coroner ruled it dehydration, but the townsfolk knew better. They avoided Hollow's End Auto, now overgrown with thorn vines that bloomed black roses in the moonlight. Jake quit the garage, but the welt on his collarbone never faded. It pulsed in the dark, whispering promises in a language of rot. He moved to a rented trailer on the outskirts of town, where he spent nights scrubbing his skin raw. The soap he used, store-bought and floral scented, always morphed by dawn into a sliver of that gray veined bark. He'd fling it into the woods, only to find it perched on his sink the next morning, damp and grinning. His sister, Lila, visited once.
You look like hell.
She said, hugging him. When she left, he found a single black rose in her hair. That night, his dreams dragged him back to the garage. The shower stall had become a tomb, its tiles carved with names. Carl Harlow, 1929. Frank Mercer, 1987. Jake Mercer, date blurred. A year later, a flea market sprouted near the interstate. Among the stalls selling counterfeit watches and moth-eaten sweaters stood a booth draped in moth-eaten velvet. The vendor, a gaunt man with a familiar Eastern European lilt, offered artisanal soaps from a lead-lined case.
Special formula.
He told customers, his grin revealing too many teeth.
Cleanses everything.
The soap sold quickly. Jake works nights now at a gas station, his collar always buttoned high. Sometimes, headlights flare in the parking lot and a figure steps out, tall, gaunt, wearing a coat that billows like smoke. Jake locks the doors, but the visitor leaves a gift on the asphalt. A soap bar, pristine and veined, resting atop a pile of gold teeth. A college student, desperate for rent money, answers an ad. Night shift wanted. No experience needed. The garage's new owner, A woman with Carl's eyes hands her a key.
There's soap in the shower if you need it.
As the student scrubs engine grease from her hands, the radio crackles to life. A voice whispers.
Thank you.
Above her, the vines tap against the windows.